Welcome into Speaking Sports, first show of 2022. I got my buddy Coach Lowell Wightman in with me today. We're going to be talking to the NCAA new football champion in the house. NIL, transfer portal, money, coaches flying everywhere. And oh yeah, the Super Bowl's this weekend. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome into Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Razorback Dave, with my buddy Coach Lowell Wightman. Coach, how's the new year treating you?
New Year's started with a bit of a whimper, but is picking up energy as I get a chance to watch the Olympics, get prepared for the Super Bowl. So all things are good.
Yeah, so you've got some athletes in China right now, don't you?
Yeah, some of that were there now back because they finished.
Back already?
They finished. And I've got a couple that are competing today. I don't think they're going to get medal, but they got lucky and got in the top finishing ones for the half pipe for men. So yeah, we got some kids over there. Just grateful to be part of the process.
Now you've been around a lot of Olympic athletes over the years. And I'm not going to ask you who they are or what they won, but do they all get there with that, man, I'm really just happy to be here? Because, not everybody gets to go.
Yeah, it's the majority of them is yes. It is a privilege. They feel that. They're humble. Their integrity is right in line with that thought. But then there's the occasional, I'm it. I got it. I'm the best. And they project that in the way they behave amongst others. And then typically when they get to the Olympic Village, there is some humbling that goes on. Especially this year, because there's processes that weren't there before. You've got to roll up your sleeve and literally get poked and stuck something up your nose and, all kinds of things that compromise your personal space. But yes, there are some that are not exactly feeling grateful to be there. Just the privilege of being nominated, as they say, with the Oscar nominations that just went down recently as well. But that's also life. There are people that are just real pain in the rear end. And then there's other people that just love being present.
Can you be both? Can you be the guy that's just happy to be there that actually goes on to win gold?
Well, and that's my magic sauce. That's my secret sauce, is to get that mindset in place, that you are truly humble and self-aware, but in the same breath, you are all about you. You must project you first to be able to be a teammate, to be able to be coachable, to be able to raise the trophy at the end when you win it. Because there's an attitude that has to be adjusted to get after it. That killer mindset. So
we've had a lot happen since you and I were last together on the air. Yeah. Georgia crowned the college football champion. How'd you feel about how that played out? I don't think I saw that coming, not to the extent that Georgia went in there and manhandled Alabama like that. I thought it would have been a much closer game.
I think there was the intangible that I usually don't get a lot of people don't appreciate my comments about this intangible. And the intangible is the coach on the sideline. And I'm not saying head coach necessarily. I'm saying coach on the sideline. The Georgia win over Alabama was influenced greatly by coaches on the sideline. They gave them insights about how to effectively defend themselves, be offensive when it's necessary to be offensive, and control all three aspects of the game. There were some young men on the Georgia team that did things that nobody expected them to do. Coverage on a punt, coverage on a kickoff when things didn't go outside the end zone. Little things like that, I think, gave it to Georgia, whereas with Alabama, it is one person's team on the coaching sideline.
Yeah.
And it's what he says to the other coaches that gets done. Georgia, on the other hand, has a unit that had been transformed over the last 3 years into a coaching team. And there was trust and honor amongst those thieves that took it away from Alabama.
Well, I think it's cool that I'm kind of glad Georgia got theirs. I mean, most people are pretty happy when Alabama loses. So everybody but Alabama fans. So I was okay. I was okay with Georgia winning. But the turmoil that ensued after that last game. I mean, all the coaching changes. We had 2 signing days since we last spoke. So there was the early signing period, which is actually now kind of the main signing period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the traditional January signing period is come and gone. We're really kind of a whimper. Most everything was done in the early period. A lot of things happening on signing day with the NIL and it's kind of getting where we all said it was going to get if somebody didn't step in and at least put some handrails up, because it's nuts.
Yeah, and you're also talking about the influence of the timing of signing day by the transfer portal. I mean, to declare yourself in the transfer portal, it starts in August of every year for athletes to say, hey, I want to get in, and do my thing. And there's some formality to that. The NCAA has done a good job for all 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3 level athletes. They basically have provided a database that athletes who choose to go in, they put their name in the hat. Now they have to get permission. Permission. That's an interesting way of using this word. They go to their coaches. They tell them they want to do this. They have to get the coach acknowledging that happened. So that's my permission. And then going from there to get their name with the compliance officer of every NCAA school. Tell the compliance officer, I got my coach's permission. They're aware of it. Now open me up to let me get into the portal. Nobody other than the compliance people on each team can let athletes into that database. So it's not open to the public. You can't go and figure out who's new and hot. Even if the press has names of people who have declared, you can't go and watch them through that portal. It's not going to happen. That is another signing day, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Declaration. So
and the NIL aspect of this is a lot of it. It's to me, it's twofold. It's because they've taken that sit out time away. It's allowing kids that maybe would go to Alabama and try to compete for a spot and that don't want to wait 2 years for Derrick Henry to go to the NFL. They can go back in the portal and get somewhere else. But then you got the added attraction of NIL. NIL changed a lot of minds on National Signing Day with the freshman high school kids that are coming out. It changed a lot of minds in the transfer portal. Kids get in the transfer portal, and then somebody in Texas says, hey, all of our offensive linemen are getting $100,000 each in endorsements. Come here. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, and the guidelines have not yet been written because the challenges to the process have not been they've not arisen in the community. And what I mean by that is the schools have not said, hey, let us help you with your branding on your website or social media with the kids. The kids are left up to do that on their own. The only guideline the school has that once a player wants to declare themselves part of the portal process, they have 48 hours to get that done. So the kid knows, hey, this is when it's going to happen. Now, they could be publicizing themselves way earlier than that to take advantage of their NIL, but I believe that's going to grow. The image and branding, dollars and economic pressure and possibilities are going to grow as the systems to support them get better.
Well, and of course, I'm Razorback Dave. I know about all things Razorback, and I do know that the university, up until the first of the year, had a policy in place that the biggest donors to the Razorback program, Walmart, J.B. Hunt, the trucking industry, Tyson's Chicken, and Stevens Inc., Jerry Jones's agency out of Little Rock. Those are probably that, and Reynolds, the Reynolds family. Those 5 entities are probably 80% of the money that winds up on the campus to do whatever it is they want to do. There was a policy in place that the NIL athletes could not engage with those companies, which was kind of putting a roadblock into what could actually be, how we could entice people to the University of Arkansas when everybody else was doing it, and there was no rule against it, but we had our own rule against it. Well, they changed that after the first of the year. The J.B. Hunt family has founded some kind of thing for that to facilitate that. So things are going to open up, and they're just going to happen everywhere. Did you happen to catch the A&M's coach, Jimbo Fisher's press conference after Alabama, Nick Saban got upset at how they were using the NIL and the transfer portal? And did you see any of that?
I did.
That circus?
And without feeding his image and brand machine, I liked what he said. Nick Saban needs to be checked down every once in a while. And given a sense of reality that he's not the only one that takes advantage of the systems and the communities that breed quality athletes. So I liked where he postured himself. I don't like necessarily his style and the way he necessarily says things, but there was truth there and the reality and prediction of the future.
Well, I think we said on this show almost a year ago, that when this finally hits and guys like Alabama look around and find out that everybody else has got the same advantages that they have been doing illegally, maybe in the gray area, whatever you want to call it, now there is no gray area and everybody can do it and everybody's emboldened to go do whatever they have to do. And it's irritating the halves. And I think it's hilarious.
And in some cases, David, it's not so much from the administration or the school's perspective. The kids are in control of a lot of the quality control checks on the way they are being treated as athletes. Now, I don't have any specific statements, but I do know that we have athletes that have declared, let's say, for example, at the University of Illinois, there's a whole herd of athletes leaving the University of Illinois and declaring into the portal. And that's because there's been changes and they were said things and things didn't come true. We're talking 4 and 5 star athletes that maybe got 5 downs that they saw in 2 seasons. So they're the biggest quality.
Silver-tongued devils with that coach speak is going to, you got to do what you say you're going to do. And I think, call me a homer if you want. I think guys like Sam Pittman, who tries to do what he says he's going to do. He'll tell everybody that comes in, we're going to write it down on a piece of paper. And then if we write it down, that's what we're doing. That's the good and the bad.
Yeah, and I think when you add, David, the other piece of elite athletes and the high school level being able to have managers to go with them into college, you've got another check and balance that the athlete has ability to control. Now, NCAA has said it has to be the elite athlete. Now, give me the definition. Yeah, give me the definition of that.
Just to say the elite athlete is the one that I want the most.
Well, exactly. And we've got 4 and 5 star systems to measure some aspect of that. But if you are put into that cadre of folks and you're allowed to then acquire a manager, you've got some guidance on the NIL scenario. You've got some guidance on the portal so that ultimately my hope is the athlete doesn't continue to get sacrificed and burnt.
Well, and don't you think that the high school athlete, especially if they start to take on guidance or representation like that, they're going to need to affiliate themselves with somebody that's looking out for them more than maybe they're looking out for themselves. And you can't really say that about every agent. Agents are what they are, but there's going to be room for an agency that takes care of the athlete first. Now, we're going to sacrifice $250,000 this year, but we took care of all our guys. That guy's going to be the guy it may be a river of pennies comparatively speaking, but that'll be the group that's still standing when the dust settles.
Well, you make a really good point that goes back to the manager role that's now been part of this system of guiding the athletes. Every one of the managers has to be affiliated with a licensed certified agency. So that gives us some filtering device of quality. We get a vetting process going on. So agencies that are a little bit shaky are not going to spend the money to bring in a staff person to be the manager, to go out and bird dog the athletes and then stick with them for 4 or 5 years of their college career before a payoff for a pro contract. Because once again, there's no guarantee. But I would say there's a better profiling of that agency and the quality of that agency filling what you just said, representing the kid and their best interests.
So last thing before the break on college football, just overall, and I'm laying it at the hands of the transfer portal. Don't you think top to bottom, parity wise, game to game, conference to conference, this was one of the better college football seasons in a long time? There were a lot of now there was a big difference between Alabama and Georgia and the rest of the world, but you're always going to have that. Maybe not as much this year as it has been in years past, but that gap is still there. But 3 to 33 to 83 took on more of an NFL. You know, the difference between great and suck in the NFL is just minimal.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that gap in college football minimized this year. A lot of it was because of the transfer portal. And I just think it's probably one of the greatest college football seasons in a while.
I'm not going to disagree with you, and I'm going to add to it by saying competition is where I lay down to watch. I like competition. Too many times people ask me, all right, who's your favorite team in this contest? I said, I can't say because I got people on both teams. And, you know, I just want to see competition. And I think competition thrived this season with NCAA football. And some of it's because of the shifting that went on with the portal. Kids got a chance to play, but that bred desire. Now the kid's emboldened. He's charged up. He or she is charged up because now they got a chance to play where they weren't before. The other part of that is what we're coming out of that drove the desire. COVID put everybody on hold for preparation of things. So programs that really thought they had an opportunity, they prepared. Preparation is the separation in champions. If you prepared and you really hunker down, I think your alma mater, Arkansas, is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Coach Pittman, he got the kids to prepare. He got benefit of the portal with some great talent that were situational and delivered plays at the right time. And they had a wonderful season, but they competed. Every game they competed. It was.
Well, they bought into what he was selling there. And, you know, it's interesting. At the end of the year, you know, they say the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. We had an amazing amount of kids go in the portal, some guys that were going to be the guy next year. And we were just all like, oh, my God, what's going on? What happened? And then 3 days later, we got better players out of the portal replacing them.
Yeah. And I noticed a figure of the data. It's very limited data. It's a lot compared to how long it's been open, but the data they have shows that a lot of the players who are going into the portal are not necessarily what we call skill positions. You know, it's not quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. It's O-linemen, D-line.
Yeah, O-line and D-line is where we reaped most of the benefits in the portal last year.
Exactly.
And in this offseason, yeah.
So the numbers are prone to show those athletes getting into the fray of the portal. Now you've got a couple of the 5-star QBs, you know, 4-star wide receivers that are going to hit the press. But the reality that's most beneficial with the portal is those journeyman players that love the game. They're there every day. Their integrity is high. Their humility is high. I mean, they just love the game, want to play.
And don't you think the portal gives a coach? I know if I was a head coach somewhere, or if I was in player personnel at a university, the portal is going to give me a very good insight into the character of the guy that I'm potentially going to spend a scholarship on. At that point, rather than not fresh out of high school, they will have spent a year and a half, 2 years at a college. They're already kind of broke into class. They're either making good grades or they're not. So if they're not making good grades, okay, you know what you got there. Yeah. If they've not been in trouble, you know what you got there. Because it is a hard transition for some of them. I think I could clean up
All that data that you just mentioned, David, is transferred with them when they declare access to the portal. So behavioral issues on campus, grade points, class schedules, grades in those classes, as well as their performance as an athlete comes with them. So it's like you get to see the records of an intern that interned at a Fortune 500 company, and now you get them, or you get a chance at them.
All right, we're going to wrap up the college football season. I can't wait till next year. I'm already pumped about it. Spring practice is coming up in March. Red-white games in April. I may even have to go. We're going to be back and go the rest of the way on the Super Bowl and what's happening in pro football. Coach Lowell, Wightman, and Razorback Dave, Speaking Sports 2022. We'll be right back. All right, everyone from athletes to weekend warriors sometimes catch a cramp when they're competing or working out. When you need relief fast, you want to reach for KRT Relief Cream. Just rub a little where it hurts, and KRT's patented technology works quickly to calm the nerves that are causing the cramps. KRT comes in cream or gel and works great for everyone. So go to krtrelief.com and enter promo code SNS20. That's SNS20 to receive 20% off your first KRT order. That's www.krtrelief.com. Speaking sports, KRT Relief, Muscle Endurance Cream, Muscle Cramp Cream, KRT, SNS20 is the code. At store.avcare.com, you're going to want to go get you some. I could use some right now, as a matter of fact. I think I have some in here somewhere. I'm going to have to hit it right after we get done here. Coach, Super Bowl, I don't know what the odds were at the beginning of the year for these two teams to be in the Super Bowl, but I certainly didn't have the Bengals on my radar. And maybe to some extent the Rams either, but I mean, and then how good of a matchup is this to the public? I mean, what does the public care? Does anybody care besides the fans of these two teams?
Well, before you really piqued my interest when you mentioned KRT.
I want to go there.
KRT Cramp Cream.
Oh,
you mentioned KRT Cramp Cream. I have to tell you about Sean White. He was on an interview, and not his current coach, but a coach in the past, gave me a call and said, can you believe that Sean White's complaining about his aches and pains? And that he woke up the other morning after his debacle, and then he finally qualified right after the second and last run. He woke up and he said, my back hurts. And he was talking to a buddy of his, and he goes, well, what did you do? Nothing. I'm 35 years old. I just woke up. And I just immediately thought, KRT Cramp Cream, we
should reach out to him.
Send him a tube. And it's every day. Every day I wake up, I've got cramp cream needs.
Well, it's also, dude, you're 35. I mean,
yeah,
you're going to start using terms you've never used, like ointment.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be, I've heard a comedian, Greg Barrett, does a whole bit about it. Okay, I hurt my back. I slept wrong. How do you screw that up? How do you sleep wrong? But you get there.
It's our way of not admitting that we're just old. We're just old. It's not sleeping wrong. You just slept and you're old.
Yeah. So the Rams in the Super Bowl.
Well, you ask a really great question that I've been asked several times since the Cincinnati win. And many of my colleagues thought that when the overtime happened with Kansas City and Cincinnati, that Kansas City had a lock because they had gone through the best and the worst of an overtime with Buffalo. But here's where I draw the line as far as LA versus Cincinnati. I'll give you my pick in a minute. But Cincinnati grew up big time in that Kansas City game. They came prepared, and they didn't let what were their weaknesses be obvious to Kansas City. They either camouflaged them or kept them away from Kansas City, and that taught them what they needed to do with LA, because they still have similar gaps with LA. And one of them is their offensive line being able to handle number 99 and number 40. That's Von Miller and McDonald. they're gonna come at it and put some pressure. The issue is creativity on LA's part. So I'm not gonna bet for Cincinnati. I'm not gonna bet at all. But if I've asked to pick, and I have been, I'm picking LA, mainly because of two reasons. One, the coaching staff for LA really listens to their players and their leaders. And Stafford, that was his biggest revelation as it relates to LA, that he was actually going to be listened to and allowed to adjust and adapt in ways that fit him. If you notice, this season with Stafford, he has not been pressured to a point where he was scrambling with his feet as much as in the past with Detroit, and not suspect to getting hurt because the hits were coming hard with the Detroit situation. With LA, it's a little scrape here, a little crumble. The pocket literally breaks down. So he's a whole different person.
So, all right. So you didn't give me your pick. Who you taking?
LA. I'm picking LA.
You're taking LA.
Yeah, okay. I'm picking LA because there's just so many other factors.
And I think they're giving 3.5 right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a competitive
what I read this
game.
morning, it was 3.5.
It's LA.
I don't see me wagering on the Super Bowl, especially all those idiotic prop bets that they have out there. That's just slightly better than flipping a coin. So I'm not going to do that. But I am going to ask you this.
Yep.
Let's say that you are counseling Jared Goff. So the whole stick on him was, I guess LA thought, well, we can't win the big one with Jared Goff. We have to find a quarterback that can get us. Goff got him to the 1 yard line, could have given him an end zone. What do we got to do? So they make a trade with Detroit and they get Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford is probably one of the best quarterbacks not to have gone to a Super Bowl until Sunday.
I'll back you up on that.
Until
Absolutely.
Sunday. And I can't get to my browser, but I would really like to know who was in Matthew Stafford's freshman class in college when he came out of high school, because there were some big guns in that freshman class the year he came out. And I believe all those guys are out of the league now. Or didn't make it to the league, one or the other.
Or they're so deep in somebody's practice squad lineup, you don't know, you don't remember them anymore.
So, but what if you're Jared Goff? I mean, you left LA thinking, well, they're wrong about me. There's, I was the guy. Well, okay, so now you're Jared Goff and you're sitting at home. Well, crap, maybe it was me. What do you tell him? How do you get him back mentally?
Yeah. And I've had experience with Jared before he got in the league, when he went to quarterback camp in Cali with a friend of mine. And at that point, the quarterback coach he was working with had identified that Jared is too politically correct. He's too nice of a guy when it comes to what he says to the public. So I said to some of his people, I said, you got to Goff up. Optimism is not enough. And what I mean by Goffing up is that he's got to make a statement about, on that mention you had a minute ago about, can't get him in the end zone when they're 1 yard out. Jared is a tough kid, but he's not a tough decision maker. Mm-hmm. Here's what I mean by it. It comes from a quote of him. He says, when they were asking him about Detroit, he says, most of all, I'm happy for those guys that because I know how hard they've worked and that they deserve it. Well, that's wonderful, Jared. That's wonderful. But then he goes on to say, well, of course, as a human, you feel like you could be missing out at times, but I think about it. And if I was in that situation, how would I feel about me? So he's trying to be this like soft-soaped and be kind and nice. And I go, no, Jared, no, that is not what this game is about. If you want to improve for 2022 for this upcoming season with the Detroit Detroit Lions, you've got to, you've got to really get some grit. And that's a politically correct term, a social media term. Get in the grind and get the grit.
Yeah. And
he's got the skills, but he doesn't quite connect with what's necessary to have the grit. And Stafford has. He has from the time he stepped on the field in Detroit And until now, when he's going to the Super Bowl, he just got an opportunity.
He has always been great, whether the teams he was playing on was great or not. How good would Detroit have been had Matthew Stafford and Barry Sanders played with each other in their prime?
Oh my gosh. He would have had such a great run after catch person with Barry. I mean, and Barry has actually been asked that question.
Really?
Because when Stafford was there, he was a religious Lions fan, mainly because of Stafford. He said, I would love to be the one running the middle routes, from the backfield, coming off an end or a motion, kind of thing, and catching the pass in the middle, because he had no fear. I mean, he has hips that wiggle in ways that nobody can ever replicate.
Yeah.
And it would just be it'd be a fifth receiver on the field. It would be awesome.
No, that's very cool. I would have liked to have seen that too. I think Barry Sanders probably deserved a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, and vice versa. Matthew definitely, and Matthew Stafford appears to be a good guy. Never been around him. I've never even heard a handful of interviews that he's ever done, which by definition for me makes him great.
He's a Brett Favre kind of guy. He's a Brett Favre kind of guy.
Yeah.
If he's pushed, he'll interview, he'll talk. But in the locker room, he's friendly, but not necessarily your friend. He's very scrutinizing about how to become his friend. If you skip a beat on anything you say with him, you're done. Right. It's if you say it, you do it.
Yeah.
So in the huddle, he's very direct, very matter of fact. And what made him successful with his teammates is he delivered. He took the hits and got back up and threw a touchdown pass.
Well, I think if I was going to have to make a pick, I would probably pick the Rams, but I'd pick a money line. And here's the thing that keeps going over in my head. Dan Marino.
What about Dan Marino?
Okay. Joe Burrows he is in the same virtual situation that Dan Marino was in.
I wonder if you're going to go there.
And he's like, and he's pretty humble about, he seems like a pretty genuine guy as well, but he's that guy that maybe right now woke up on third thinking he hit a triple, because I've heard Dan Marino say, I went first, second, whatever year it was, Marino went to the Super Bowl. We didn't win. I thought, well, my career's just starting. I'll be back there. And he never went back. And it's not as easy as you think it is. And Joe Burrow may not ever get back. I'm just interested to see if history repeats itself for Joe Burrow as to what had happened with Dan Marino.
I like that.
I can't take Cincinnati.
Yeah, I like that comparison and analogy, but I'd also throw this one in similar to what you just did. Joe Montana, which is why Cincinnati's got a chance to win against LA, because they're built alike. They're both just a couple of, smart knuckleheads. What I mean by that, they have a sense of humor. They're jokesters in the locker room, but they're always very friendly. And yet when they walk around like, oh, da, 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 all of a sudden they deliver this amazing feat of athleticism at a moment you don't expect it. And Burrows is that kid, even more talented physically than Montana was in his day. Marino and Burrows are alike in their knowledge of the game and the field. Burrows has always amazed me at how much he sees on the field, and very, very quickly.
Well, that's going to do it for us for this week's edition of Speaking Sports. Thank you, Coach, for coming on. I'm ready for the new year, I guess. Basketball, I guess maybe talking some basketball next time we meet up.
Yeah, March Madness is coming, brother.
March Madness is fast approaching. It sure is. Don't forget store.afcare.com. Pick up your KRT and make sure, Coach, you send some to Sean. That might help us out quite a bit.
And my back is hurting a little bit.
Hey, I know you've got some. We'll see you next time. Razorback Dave is out. Marvelous. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
How's life?
Good. I saw that you decided to let the puppies have a break and carry them around in a grocery cart.
That was like the very first week we had them.
I went, those don't look like a year old.
No, they were a year old. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
That was almost a year ago. Yeah. They're growing like bad weeds.
Is Austin going to have a spring break, or is he going to have to stay on campus?
He is going to have a spring break. He is not sure when he's coming or if he's coming. Now his aunt got him tickets to that outdoor hockey game at Nissan Stadium, and he was going to have to drive out. He just told me before we came on that he's thinking about not coming for that because Arkansas plays Kentucky that Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
In Bud Walton. And after beating Auburn Tuesday night.
Yeah.
He was there. He sent me some video from the floor after they stormed the floor. He had his phone out there doing the whole, he is literally living the dream.
Yeah. Keep encouraging. I mean, he'll do it anyway, I think, but encourage him to keep taking video chunks and putting it into a library. And because that's golden when you can get,